A millionaire visits an orphanage to deliver food and sees a girl who looks exactly like his late wife. What happens next will leave you speechless. It was a gray and rainy day in the city. The streets were cloaked in a veil of water, and the overcast sky seemed to mirror the mood of many of its residents. However, in a grand mansion on the outskirts, a man walked purposefully toward his garage. Ethan was a successful entrepreneur who had built an impressive business empire over the years. Despite his immense wealth and high status, he had chosen to live a relatively modest and humble life. His home, though spacious and luxurious, lacked the extravagance and flashiness often associated with the estates of magnates. Ethan opened the door of one of his cars, a simple yet elegant SUV, and settled into the driver's seat. Starting the engine, he exited the garage and drove into the rain-soaked streets of the city. His destination was an orphanage in one of the city's most underprivileged areas, a place he frequently visited to deliver supplies and offer his support. Even with his substantial financial power, Ethan had not been blinded by his riches, nor had he forgotten his roots. He vividly remembered how, as a child, his family had endured times of scarcity and economic hardship. That experience had left a lasting impression on him, motivating him to devote much of his time and resources to helping those in circumstances similar to what he had faced. As he drove, Ethan thought of the faces of the children living at the orphanage. Many of them, orphaned or abandoned, had never known the comfort of a happy and secure childhood. He worked hard to bring them moments of joy and hope amidst their challenging circumstances. Upon arriving at the orphanage, Ethan was greeted by the director, a middle-aged woman named Sophia, who welcomed him with a warm smile. "Ethan, it's such a pleasure to see you. The kids will be thrilled you're here." "Good afternoon, Sophia. I've brought some food and clothing that I hope will be helpful." Ethan pointed to the load he had brought along. "Thank you so much, you're very kind. Come on, let's get everything set up in the kitchen." Together, Ethan and Sophia entered the building and headed to the kitchen, where several volunteers were busy preparing lunch for the children. Ethan watched closely as the staff moved efficiently and attentively, ensuring nothing was missing for the young residents. Once they had organized the supplies, Ethan decided to take a tour of the facility, wanting to make sure everything was in good shape and the children were doing well. As he walked through the hallways, he greeted each child he passed, offering them a smile and a kind word. Ethan stopped at a room where a group of children was playing happily, watching from the doorway as they laughed and ran around, blissfully unaware of the challenges life had thrown at them. Seeing them like this filled his heart with a warmth that few things could spark. Suddenly, his eyes landed on a little girl sitting in a corner, apart from the rest of the group. She looked about 8 years old, with brown hair and eyes that seemed to carry a profound sadness. Ethan felt a strange pang in his chest as he watched her, as though something inside him had shifted. He approached the girl slowly and knelt down beside her. "Hi there, little one. Why are you sitting here all alone?" he asked gently. The girl glanced up at him cautiously. "I don't like playing with the others. I'd rather be alone," she replied quietly. "And why do you prefer to be alone? Don't you like playing with your friends?" he asked. "I don't have any friends. They all make fun of me and make me feel bad," she murmured, lowering her gaze. Ethan felt a deep sadness hearing those words. He knew that unfortunately, many children at the orphanage had endured rejection and mistreatment, leaving emotional scars that were hard to heal. "I understand. That must be really hard for you. But let me tell you something. You're not alone. I'm here, and I'm so happy to meet you," Ethan said with a warm smile. The girl looked at him with surprise, as if she wasn't used to receiving kindness or attention. "Really?" she asked timidly. "Of course, my name's Ethan, and I come here often. I'd love for us to be friends," he replied, extending his hand. The girl hesitated for a moment before finally shaking Ethan's hand, a small smile appearing on her lips. "My name's Sophia. It's nice to meet you, Ethan." Ethan felt a comforting warmth in his chest. There was something about Sophia that deeply moved him, something that seemed to stir memories and emotions he thought he had buried long ago. They spent several minutes talking and laughing together, with Ethan doing his best to make Sophia feel safe and at ease. Little by little, Sophia began to open up, sharing more about herself. When it was time for lunch, Ethan walked with Sophia and the other children to the dining area. He made sure her plate was served with special care, noticing that she had a rather modest appetite. Then he sat beside her, chatting animatedly as they enjoyed their meal. Ethan found himself captivated by Sophia's sweetness and innocence. There was something about her that felt strikingly familiar, though he couldn't quite figure out what it was. Every time he looked at her, an unexplainable mix of sadness and longing washed over him, leaving him unsettled. When the meal was over, Ethan said goodbye to Sophia and the rest of the children, promising he'd return soon. Before leaving, he handed the director a generous cash donation to help cover the orphanage's most urgent needs. As he drove back to his mansion, Ethan couldn't stop thinking about Sophia. The image of that lonely, sorrowful little girl had touched him in a way he didn't fully understand. He felt an almost inexplicable urge to see her again, to offer her the support and affection she seemed to desperately need. When he arrived home, Ethan went straight to his study. On his desk sat a framed photograph of his late wife, Emily. She had been the love of his life, the woman who had stood by him through every triumph and setback, and whose tragic death had left a permanent scar on his heart. Ethan picked up the photo and gazed at Emily's radiant smile. His mind wandered back to that devastating day. The accident that had shattered his entire world. In that moment, he had lost his beloved partner. But worse still, he believed he had also lost his only daughter. A 2-year-old girl who had been with them when the crash occurred. For years, Ethan had been consumed by guilt and grief, tirelessly searching for his daughter. Yet, every lead had led to a dead end. Eventually, he had no choice but to accept the devastating reality that she had perished alongside Emily. Now, years later, seeing Sophia had awakened all those buried memories. The resemblance between the girl and Emily was so striking that Ethan couldn't shake the thought. Could it be possible that his daughter was still alive? He set the photograph back down and leaned into his chair, deep in thought. Perhaps it was worth digging deeper into Sophia's story, finding out how she had ended up at the orphanage and whether there was even the faintest chance that she might be his long-lost child. The idea alone filled him with a mixture of hope and paralyzing fear. If it turned out to be true, how would Sophia react to discovering he was her father? Could Ethan step back into that role after all these years? Shaking his head, he tried to dispel the overwhelming thoughts. He didn't want to jump to conclusions or let his emotions cloud his judgment. It was better to stay grounded and proceed with caution. For now, his focus would remain on supporting the orphanage and giving Sophia all the care and attention he could. That night, Ethan found it impossible to sleep. He tossed and turned, his mind overwhelmed by conflicting emotions. The thought that Sophia might be his daughter thrilled and terrified him in equal measure. Was he ready to take on such a responsibility after so much time had passed? In the early hours of the morning, unable to bear the uncertainty any longer, Ethan went back to his study. He powered up his computer and began searching for any information that might connect Sophia to the accident that had taken his family from him. Hours slipped by as he combed through news articles, records, and files, desperately hunting for a clue to either confirm or disprove his suspicions. The deeper he delved into his investigation, the more entangled he became in a web of doubts and powerful emotions. His heart pounded with every new piece of evidence, every fresh coincidence that hinted Sophia might, in fact, be his daughter. Finally, as the sun began to peek over the horizon, Ethan came across a police report that seemed to perfectly align with the tragedy he had endured. According to the document, a little girl around 2 years old had been found alive among the wreckage of the vehicle she had been traveling in, following an accident that had claimed the lives of her parents. Ethan read the report over and over, feeling as though the world around him had come to a standstill. There it was. The details he remembered so vividly. The accident's location, the timing, the circumstances, and the description of the surviving child. Everything matched what he knew about his own daughter. With his heart racing, Ethan stood up abruptly and left his office. He needed to speak with Sophia. He had to know the truth. He had to find out if the little girl who had captured his heart was, in fact, his long-lost daughter. Without wasting another moment, Ethan got into his car and headed to the orphanage. He drove as fast as he could, his impatience growing with every passing second. When he finally arrived, Ethan found Sophia, the director, and urgently explained what he had just discovered. She listened attentively, visibly stunned by the information he was sharing. "Are you sure about this, Ethan? Do you really think Sophia might be your daughter?" "Yes, Sophia. I'm absolutely certain. Every detail lines up. The age, the accident's location, everything. Please, I need to speak with her. I need to know the truth," Ethan pleaded, his voice filled with emotion. The director nodded slowly and went to fetch young Sophia. Ethan waited anxiously, his heart pounding in his chest. A few minutes later, Sophia returned with the little girl by her side. When Sophia saw Ethan, she looked at him curiously, not understanding what was happening. "Sophia, sweetheart, Mr. Ethan has something very important to tell you," Sophia, the director said gently. Ethan knelt in front of the girl, taking her small hands in his own with care. "Sophia, I know this might sound strange, But do you remember anything about your parents? Or how you came to be here? He asked cautiously. Little Sophia furrowed her brow, trying to recall. Well, all I know is that my parents died in a car accident when I was really little. After that, they brought me here to this orphanage, she answered sadly. Ethan felt his chest tighten at her words. Taking a deep breath, he continued. Sophia, I think I might know what really happened. You see, many years ago, I was also in a car accident. In that accident, I lost my wife and my daughter. But now, after all this time, I believe you're my daughter, the one I thought I had lost, he said, his voice trembling with emotion. Sophia stared at him with wide eyes, unsure of how to respond. The director watched the scene unfold with a mixture of shock and anticipation. You mean, you're my dad? Sophia whispered. Yes, sweetheart, that's what I believe, Ethan replied. I know it must be incredibly hard to believe, but I promise you, I'm telling the truth. Sophia stayed quiet, her mind trying to process Ethan's words. The little girl couldn't fully grasp the weight of what had just been revealed to her. For years, she had lived under the belief that her parents had died in that tragic accident. And now, out of nowhere, this man was standing in front of her, claiming to be her father, the father she thought was gone forever. Ethan watched her intently, his heart pounding as he waited for her reaction. He was terrified Sophia might reject him or simply dismiss his words as untrue. After all, they were almost strangers to each other. Finally, Sophia raised her head and locked eyes with Ethan. In her gaze, there was a mix of disbelief, emotion, and, above all, a fragile glimmer of hope. Is it true? Are you really my dad? She asked cautiously. Ethan nodded, feeling tears threatening to spill. Yes, Sophia, I am your dad, he said, his voice trembling. I'm so sorry I haven't been there for you all these years. But I swear to you, I didn't know you were alive. His words came out in broken fragments, heavy with emotion. Sophia stared at him silently for a moment, as though searching his face for the truth. Then, without warning, she flung herself into Ethan's arms, bursting into tears. Ethan held her tightly, embracing her as if afraid she might vanish. After so many years of heartache and longing, he finally had his little girl in his arms. Tears streamed down his face as he gently stroked Sophia's hair. The orphanage director, moved by the emotional scene, approached them and placed a hand on Ethan's shoulder. I'm so happy for both of you. If this is true, then this reunion is nothing short of a miracle, she said with a warm smile. Ethan looked at her, his eyes shining with tears. It is a miracle, he replied. I can't believe that after all this time, I've found my daughter. It feels like a huge weight has been lifted off my shoulders. He pulled Sophia even closer to him, as if reassuring himself that she was really there. Still sobbing, Sophia tilted her head up to look at Ethan, her expression a blend of disbelief and cautious hope. So, you're really my dad? This isn't some kind of joke? She asked, her voice shaking. No, sweetheart, it's not a joke, Ethan assured her, cupping her face gently. I'm your dad, and I'm here now. I promise you, I'll never leave you again. Sophia clung to him even tighter, as if afraid he might slip away. Ethan cradled her tenderly, his heart swelling with a joy he hadn't felt in years. They stayed like that for several minutes, wrapped in a moment of deep connection and overwhelming emotion. The orphanage director watched them with a smile, her eyes glistening with tears, clearly touched by the scene unfolding before her. Finally, Ethan pulled back slightly from Sophia and looked at her with a warm smile. Sophia, would you like to come live with me? I want to make up for the lost time and take care of you the way I should have from the very beginning, he said gently. Sophia stared at him wide-eyed, hardly able to believe what she was hearing. Really? I can go with you? She asked, her voice brimming with excitement. Of course, my love. Nothing would make me happier than having you by my side, Ethan replied, tenderly stroking her cheek. Overcome with emotion, Sophia threw her arms around her father again, laughing and crying all at once. Ethan held her tightly, feeling as though his heart might burst from the joy. The orphanage director approached them, placing a hand on Ethan's shoulder. I'm so happy for you both. Sophia has had a tough life here, but now she'll finally have the home and love she deserves. Take good care of her, Ethan, she said sincerely. I promise I will, Ethan responded, looking at Sophia with profound affection. I'll do everything in my power to give Sophia the best life possible. After finalizing the necessary legal and administrative details, Ethan and Sophia said goodbye to the orphanage and climbed into the businessman's car. During the drive to the mansion, Ethan couldn't stop glancing at his daughter, still in disbelief that he had found her after so many years. Sophia, on the other hand, seemed to be walking on air, her happiness almost tangible. She looked around with wide eyes, captivated by the luxurious car and the grandeur of the home they were heading toward. When they finally arrived, Ethan opened the door and guided Sophia inside. The little girl gazed around with a mix of awe and shyness, struggling to believe this would be her new home. "Welcome to your new house, Sophia," Ethan said with a smile. "I hope you'll feel comfortable and happy here." Sophia looked at him with deep gratitude. "Thank you, Dad. I still can't believe this is happening. Everything is so beautiful," she said, marveling. Ethan's heart swelled with pride and joy at hearing her call him Dad. Taking her hand, he began showing her around the house. "This is the living room, and over there is the dining room, and here's the kitchen, where you can help me cook if you'd like," he explained, pointing out each area. Sophia nodded eagerly, trying to memorize every detail. When they reached the room that would be hers, Sophia let out a gasp of amazement. The space was large and bright, decorated thoughtfully with care. There was a bed with soft linens, a desk, a wardrobe, and an array of toys and books neatly arranged. "This room is for me?" Sophia asked breathlessly. "Yes, my love. Here, you can rest and play as much as you want," Ethan replied, watching her reaction with tenderness. Sophia scanned the room, her eyes lighting up as she took in every detail, completely awestruck. Finally, she turned to Ethan and hugged him tightly. "Thank you, Dad. Thank you for bringing me here. It's amazing," she whispered, her voice filled with emotion. Ethan held her gently, feeling tears well up in his eyes again. "You don't have to thank me, sweetheart. You're my daughter, and this is your home. I promise I'll do everything I can to give you the best life possible," he assured her, softly kissing her forehead. They stayed in each other's arms for several minutes, savoring the moment of reunion and connection. Ethan felt as if a tremendous weight had been lifted off his shoulders. After so many years of pain and heartache, he had finally found his daughter, the little girl he thought he had lost forever. When they finally pulled apart, Sophia looked at him with an expression of deep gratitude. "Dad, do you think I could call you Dad someday?" she asked shyly. Ethan gave her a warm smile. "Of course, my love, it would make me the happiest man in the world if you did," he replied, gently brushing her cheek. Sophia smiled back and, without warning, threw herself into his arms again. Ethan held her tightly, his heart overflowing with joy. At that moment, he knew nothing and no one could take away the happiness of having his daughter back. After years of living in grief and guilt, holding her in his arms felt like being reborn. Together, father and daughter resolved to start a new chapter, one filled with hope, love, and the promise of a better future. Ethan was determined to give Sophia all the love and safety she had been denied for so long. Sophia, in turn, clung to the possibility of having a family and a home that welcomed her with open arms. As Ethan showed Sophia every corner of the house, the girl couldn't help but feel a mix of awe, gratitude, and a deep joy that seemed to flood every part of her being. After so many years of loneliness and sadness, she finally had a father who loved her and was willing to give her everything she needed. That night, as Sophia lay in her new bed, she couldn't stop thinking about how lucky she was. She looked around, marveling at the elegance and comfort of her room, unable to believe how drastically her life had changed overnight. Slowly, sleep began to overtake her, and Sophia drifted off with a smile on her lips, feeling safe and protected in this place that was now her home. Meanwhile, Ethan sat in his office, going over the police report he had found one more time. He still struggled to process that, after so many years, he had found his lost daughter. It felt like a miracle come true. Carefully, he put the document away and leaned back in his chair, lost in thought. Now that Sophia was with him, he had a lot to reconsider. He needed to adapt to his new life as a father and ensure that he gave his daughter all the love and attention she deserved. Ethan knew it wouldn't be easy. After all, nearly 7 years had passed since the accident, and Sophia had endured a childhood filled with loneliness and hardship. But he was determined to do everything possible to heal those wounds and build a relationship full of love and trust. With a deep sigh, he stood up and walked to Sophia's room, wanting to make sure she was comfortable and at peace in her new home. As he reached the doorway, he paused for a moment, watching her sleep with a look of serene contentment on her face. Ethan quietly approached and sat on the edge of the bed, gazing at his daughter with a mix of tenderness and awe. Slowly, he reached out and gently stroked her hair, as though afraid she might vanish before his eyes. "My little Sophia," he whispered with emotion. "You don't know how much I've missed you, but now you're here, with me, and I'll do everything I can to protect and take care of you. You're the most important thing in my life. Ethan leaned in and placed a soft kiss on Sophia's forehead. She stirred slightly in her sleep but didn't wake. The businessman smiled, stood up, and resolved to watch over her rest. Before leaving the room, Ethan paused once more, gazing at Sophia with an expression filled with love and determination. "I promise to be the father you deserve, my love, and I'll do everything I can to make sure you never suffer again." With that vow in mind, Ethan turned off the light and closed the door, ready to dedicate every moment of his life to giving Sophia the home and family she had always longed for. The next morning, Ethan woke up early, feeling a surge of energy and anticipation he hadn't experienced in years. He quickly got dressed and headed to the kitchen, determined to make a delicious breakfast for his daughter. As he cooked, he couldn't stop thinking about Sophia and how everything was going to change from that moment on. It was as if a dark cloud had finally lifted, revealing a future filled with hope and possibilities. When breakfast was ready, Ethan went upstairs to Sophia's room and knocked gently on the door. He heard a faint murmur, followed by the sound of footsteps approaching. The door opened, and Sophia appeared, rubbing her sleepy eyes. When she saw Ethan, a huge smile lit up her face. "Dad!" she exclaimed, throwing herself into his arms. Ethan embraced her warmly, his heart swelling with joy as he heard Sophia call him that. "Good morning, my love. Did you sleep well?" he asked, kissing her cheek. "I slept great. It was the best night I've had in a long time," Sophia replied, glowing with happiness. "I'm so glad to hear that, sweetheart. Now, how about we have breakfast together?" "I made your favorite pancakes," Ethan said with a playful wink. Sophia's eyes lit up with excitement. "Really? Let's go. I'm so hungry," she exclaimed, grabbing his hand. Together, Ethan and Sophia made their way to the dining room, where the table was set with an array of delicious dishes. Sophia stared in amazement, unable to believe everything had been prepared just for her. Ethan watched his daughter with a smile, pleased to see the joy on her face. Gently, he guided her to the table and gestured for her to sit. "Go ahead, my love, all of this is for you. I hope you enjoy it," he said, serving her a generous plate of pancakes topped with honey and fruit. Sophia picked up her fork and knife timidly, as though afraid she might break something. Ethan noticed this and leaned closer, placing a hand over hers. "You don't have to be scared, sweetheart. This is your home now, and you can eat as much as you want." He pledged it with his life. The girl looked at him with gratitude and started eating, savoring the delicious taste of the pancakes. Ethan watched her, pleased to see how much his daughter was enjoying the meal. "Do you like it?" he asked with a smile. "It's amazing," Sophia exclaimed with her mouth full. "It's the best thing I've had in a long time." Ethan felt his heart swell with pride. Knowing he had made something his daughter loved filled him with joy. Over breakfast, Ethan and Sophia chatted happily, laughing and sharing stories. The girl told her father bits and pieces about her life in the orphanage, and he listened intently, moved by the challenges she had endured. Once they finished eating, Ethan took Sophia to the living room. They sat on a cozy couch, and the businessman asked his daughter what she'd like to do. "Well, I'm not sure," Sophia replied a little shyly. "I've never really had many things to play with or do." Ethan gave her a warm smile and gently held her hand. "Well, now you have a whole world of possibilities, my love. How about we go into town, buy you some toys and new clothes? We can spend the day together and have fun," he suggested excitedly. Sophia's eyes lit up with excitement. "Really? Can we go?" she asked breathlessly. "Of course, sweetheart. I want you to have everything you've ever dreamed of," Ethan assured her, giving her hand a soft squeeze. Without wasting any time, Ethan and Sophia left the mansion and headed to the city center. During the ride, the girl couldn't contain her excitement, gazing out the window with wide-open eyes. When they arrived at the shopping district, Ethan led Sophia into a massive toy store. The little girl stopped at the entrance, mesmerized by the variety of items on display. "Look, Dad, there are so many things," she exclaimed, unsure of where to start. Ethan smiled tenderly and said, "Go ahead, sweetheart. Pick out anything you want. Today is special, and you can have whatever you like." Sophia looked at him with a mix of excitement and gratitude before eagerly venturing into the store, exploring the aisles with enthusiasm. Ethan stayed close behind, watching proudly as his daughter examined every corner. For hours, father and daughter enjoyed choosing various toys, books, clothes, and other items together. Sophia was beaming with joy, unable to believe that everything she held was hers. When they finally left the store, Sophia carried several bags filled with her new treasures. Ethan watched her with a warm smile, feeling like his heart might burst with happiness. "Thank you, Dad. This has been amazing," Sophia exclaimed, throwing her arms around Ethan in a tight hug. The days following the revelation of the truth were intense for both Ethan and Sophia. The businessman still couldn't believe that, after so many years, he had found his daughter and now had the chance to rebuild the family bonds that had been stolen from them. For Sophia, it was an emotional whirlwind. On one hand, she was overwhelmed by the news that Ethan was her father, whom she had thought was gone. But at the same time, she felt deeply relieved and happy to know she had a family who loved her and wanted to care for her. In the first few days, father and daughter spent long hours talking, trying to catch up and piece together how they had ended up in this situation. Ethan shared with Sophia every detail of the tragic accident that had taken her mother and separated them. Sophia listened intently, moved by the pain and guilt reflected in her father's words. "I can't imagine what you must have gone through, Dad," Sophia said, holding Ethan's hand with affection. "It must have been horrible to lose Mom and think I was gone too." Ethan gently squeezed his daughter's hand, feeling tears threaten to spill from his eyes. "It was the worst experience of my life, sweetheart," he admitted in a trembling voice. "Losing your mother was devastating, and believing I had lost you too. It felt like my entire world fell apart." Sophia leaned closer to him and hugged him tightly, offering the comfort he so desperately needed. Ethan returned the embrace, letting tears stream freely down his face. "But now you're here, with me," Sophia whispered. "And you don't have to be alone anymore. We'll be together, Dad." Ethan nodded, holding his daughter even tighter. "Yes, sweetheart. You're all I have left of your mother, and I won't let anything or anyone separate us again." They stayed like that for several minutes, enveloped in a moment of profound connection and understanding. Sophia knew that, despite everything they had endured, her father loved her with all his heart. And Ethan, for his part, felt endlessly grateful to have found his daughter, whom he had thought he'd lost forever. Little by little, Sophia began to feel more comfortable and secure in her new home. The massive mansion, which initially felt so imposing and overwhelming, transformed into a warm and welcoming haven thanks to Ethan's love and dedication. The businessman poured his heart into making Sophia feel cherished and safe. He prepared her favorite meals, joined her in games and activities, and devoted countless hours to her care and attention. For Ethan, nothing mattered more than giving his daughter the love and stability she had missed out on for so many years. One afternoon, as they strolled through the gardens of the estate, Sophia suddenly stopped and looked at Ethan with a serious expression. "Dad, can I ask you something?" she said hesitantly. "Of course, sweetheart. What's on your mind?" Ethan replied, pausing beside her. "Well, I was wondering if you know what happened to my mom. The orphanage director told me my parents died in an accident, but do you know anything else?" she asked, her voice tinged with both curiosity and caution. Ethan's heart sank at her question. He knew the day would come when he'd have to confront this painful subject with Sophia, but he wasn't sure how to begin. Taking a deep breath, he clasped her hands gently in his. "Yes, my love, I do know what happened to your mom," he started softly. "You see, your mother and I were in a terrible car accident many years ago. I managed to survive without serious injury, but your mom—" He paused, the lump in his throat making it difficult to continue. "Your mom didn't make it." Sophia's eyes widened in shock, her expression a mixture of disbelief and sadness. "So, my mom died in the accident?" she asked, her voice trembling. Ethan nodded with sorrow. "Yes, sweetheart, it was a terrible tragedy. I loved her with all my heart, and losing her it was the most painful experience of my life," he admitted, giving Sophia's hands a gentle squeeze. Sophia remained silent for a moment, processing what she had just heard. Then, cautiously, she asked another question. "And what about me? You said you thought I had died in the accident too." Ethan exhaled deeply before answering. "Yes, sweetheart. After the accident, there was no sign of you in the car, and everyone assumed you hadn't survived either," he explained, his voice faltering. "I searched for you tirelessly, but I could never find you. I truly believed I had lost my entire family." Sophia gazed at him with profound sadness. "Then how am I here with you now?" she whispered. "That's something I still don't fully understand," Ethan admitted. "Until recently, I had no idea you were alive. It was purely by chance that I found you at the orphanage and discovered you were my long-lost daughter." Sophia nodded slowly, her mind working to piece together everything she had just learned. Ethan watched her with concern, fearing the revelation might be too overwhelming for her. "I know this must be really hard to process, my love," he said softly, gently holding her hands. "But I want you to know, no matter what happens, I'll always be here for you. You mean everything to me, and I won't ever let you go again." Sophia's eyes filled with tears, and without warning, she threw herself into Ethan's arms, hugging him tightly. "I believe you, Dad," she murmured against his chest. "I know you'd never hurt me, and I'm so glad you found me after all this time." Ethan held her tenderly, feeling his heart swell with relief and gratitude. Despite the tragic story behind their reunion, Sophia seemed ready to forgive and embrace the chance at a fresh start together. "I'm so glad too, my love," Ethan whispered, kissing the top of her head gently. "I promise I'll do everything I can to make up for everything you've been through." Sophia pulled back slightly and looked up at him with a smile. "I know you will, Dad. And I want us to be a real family. A true family." Ethan returned her smile, feeling a profound sense of peace and joy he hadn't experienced in years. "That's exactly what we'll be, my love. A family, together forever." Father and daughter embraced again, sealing their commitment to build a new future together, filled with love, understanding, and the promise of brighter days ahead. In the days that followed, Ethan and Sophia spent much of their time strengthening the family bond that had been so cruelly severed. Together, they explored the sprawling mansion, played in the gardens, and shared long conversations filled with laughter and stories. Sophia, once a shy and reserved child, gradually began to blossom under her father's warm affection. Ethan made sure to give her all the support and attention she needed, making her feel safe, loved, and protected. Beyond the material wealth surrounding him, what truly brought Ethan happiness was watching Sophia rediscover the joy and innocence stolen from her for so many years. Seeing her smile, play, and enjoy life like a child should was the greatest treasure he could have. However, as the days went by, Ethan began to notice that Sophia sometimes seemed lost in thought and distant. He sensed that, despite all his efforts to provide her with a loving home, there was still something weighing heavily on her mind. One evening, while they were having a snack together, Ethan finally gathered the courage to bring up the subject. "Sophia, my love, there's something we need to talk about. I've noticed you've been a bit distant lately." He spoke gently. Sophia looked up from her plate, her expression uncertain. "Well, there's been something on my mind," she admitted, nervously fiddling with her napkin. Ethan leaned closer, taking her hand with warmth. "You know you can trust me, sweetheart. You can talk to me about anything." Sophia nodded, drawing a deep breath before continuing. "It's about what happened with my mom. You've told me what occurred, but there are still things I don't fully understand," she said softly. Ethan gave her hand a comforting squeeze, preparing himself for the painful conversation. "Tell me, my love, what's troubling you?" he asked patiently. "Well, you've said my mom died in the accident, but do you know exactly how it all happened? What really went on?" Sophia questioned, her gaze fixed on the table. Ethan sighed deeply, knowing this moment was inevitable despite how much it hurt. "You see, Sophia, the accident happened on a rainy night. We were heading home after spending the afternoon with you," he began, his voice heavy with emotion. "We were in the car, your mom, you, and I. Suddenly, a distracted driver swerved into our lane, and there was no way to avoid the crash." Sophia listened intently, hanging on to every word. "The impact was devastating. I managed to escape with a few injuries, but your mom..." Ethan paused, struggling against the tears welling in his eyes. "Your mom took the brunt of the hit. The paramedics tried their best to save her, but her injuries were too severe. She didn't make it." Sophia's eyes filled with tears, deeply moved by the tragedy. "And what about me? How did I end up in an orphanage?" she asked, her voice trembling. "That's what haunts me the most, my love," Ethan confessed, gripping her hand more tightly. "After the accident, the rescuers couldn't find you. We searched everywhere, but there was no trace of you in the car. Everyone assumed you had died too." Tears streamed down Sophia's face as Ethan pulled her into a tender embrace. "I don't understand, Dad," she sobbed into his chest. "How could I have survived, and no one knew? Where was I all this time?" "That's what I want to know too, my love," Ethan replied, gently stroking her hair. "For years I searched for clues, anything that could help me find you, but every lead ended in a dead end. Finally, I had to come to terms with the fact that I had lost you forever." Sophia clung to him, tears streaming down her face as she sobbed uncontrollably. Ethan held her close, comforting her with patience, though his own heart broke watching his daughter's pain. "Then how am I here with you now?" Sophia asked through her tears. "What happened?" Ethan let out a deep sigh before answering. "That's what I'm still trying to fully understand, my love," he admitted. Wow, when I found you at the orphanage, it felt like fate had given us a second chance. Seeing you there, with those sorrowful eyes and an inexplicable familiarity, made me suspect you could be my lost daughter. Sophia listened intently, absorbing every word he spoke. So, I started investigating, searching for clues to confirm or deny my suspicions, Ethan continued. After a long and challenging process, I found a police report that matched the details of the accident. The report mentioned that a small child had been discovered alive among the wreckage. Sophia's eyes widened in shock as she heard this revelation. Are you saying I was that child? She asked breathlessly. Ethan nodded solemnly. Yes, my love. You were that baby who miraculously survived the crash. But for some reason, no one knew of your existence until I found you at the orphanage, he explained gently. Once Sophia had calmed down a bit, Ethan looked at her with a warm, caring expression. How about we go for a walk after breakfast? He suggested with a smile. I think some fresh air will do us both good. Sophia nodded, offering a shy smile in return. That sounds like a great idea, Dad, Sophia said, wiping the tears from her face. After breakfast, father and daughter enjoyed a peaceful walk in the mansion's gardens. Ethan watched Sophia, noticing how her posture relaxed, and decided to bring up something on his mind. Sophia, my love, there's something I'd like to talk to you about, he said gently. Sophia looked up at him, curious. What is it, Dad? She asked. Ethan paused, taking a deep breath. I know this has been overwhelming for you, meeting me suddenly and learning about your past. It must have been hard, he said, his face serious. Sophia nodded, listening attentively. What worries me most, Ethan continued, is that you may have put aside something important, your childhood. Sophia was puzzled. What do you mean, Dad? She asked. Ethan took her hands in his. You've been through too much for someone your age, sweetheart, he said. I want to make sure you can enjoy a happy, carefree childhood from now on. Sophia looked at him with gratitude. Dad, She started, but Ethan interrupted. I can't erase your past pain, but I want you to know I'm here now, he said with sincerity. I'll do everything I can to make it up to you. Sophia's eyes filled with tears, and Ethan embraced her warmly. I want you to let go of your worries and simply be a child, he murmured. Play, laugh, and have fun without thinking about anything else. Sophia clung to him, her sobs softening the silence. But, Dad, what about the truth of what happened to me? What if we never find it? She asked, her voice trembling. Ethan pulled back slightly and spoke firmly. That doesn't matter right now, my love, he said. What matters is that you're here with me, and I will protect you. Sophia looked up at him, absorbing his words. I know you want answers, Ethan continued. And I promise, we'll find them. But for now, focus on being happy. Sophia smiled shyly. Really, Dad? I can let it go for a while? Ethan nodded, caressing her cheek. Yes, sweetheart, I want you to just be the child you deserve to be. Sophia hugged him tightly. Thank you, Dad, she whispered. Thank you for being here. Ethan kissed her forehead. You are my greatest treasure, Sophia. I'll do everything I can to make sure you're happy. They stayed in the embrace, savoring the warmth of their bond. After a while, they continued their walk through the gardens. Ethan pointed out flowers and trees, and Sophia listened intently, her eyes sparkling with joy. Ethan felt proud of his daughter's happiness, and they spent the rest of the afternoon exploring the garden. Later, they stumbled upon a small pond. Sophia observed the fish swimming peacefully, and Ethan joined her, pointing out the colorful species. Do you like them, my love? He asked. Sophia nodded. Yes, Dad, they're beautiful. Ethan looked at her with affection. This pond and the gardens hold a special meaning for me, he said softly. Sophia asked with curiosity, what does this place mean? Ethan sat on the grass, inviting Sophia to join him. This was your mother's favorite place, he shared, his eyes filled with longing. We spent many afternoons here, enjoying nature and talking about our dreams. Sophia listened closely. Emily, your mother, adored this spot, Ethan continued. It was her oasis of peace. Sophia smiled gently. I'm glad it meant so much to her, she said. And I'm happy you're sharing it with me, Dad. Ethan nodded, holding her hand. Now that I have you, this place means even more, he admitted. Here, by this pond, I feel I can reconnect with your mother. Sophia squeezed his hand. Thank you for bringing me here, Dad. I'm honored to be part of this place. Ethan embraced her, smiling warmly. You are the most important thing in my life. This place is now ours, a place where we can create new memories. They stayed by the pond until the sun began to set, feeling the tranquility of the moment. Back at the mansion, Ethan suggested dinner. You are my priority, Sophia, he said seriously. I'll do everything I can to give you the childhood you deserve. Sophia listened intently as he continued. I've been thinking about what would make you happy. How about a private tutor for your studies? And maybe some music or art classes? Sophia's eyes lit up with excitement. Really, Dad? Can I do all of that? Ethan nodded. Of course, sweetheart. I want you to have every opportunity you were denied. Sophia hugged him tightly, her laughter filling the room. Thank you, Dad. You're the best. Ethan held her close, his heart full of joy. You are my greatest treasure, he whispered. I'll make sure you never feel lonely or unhappy again. Sophia beamed. With you by my side, I know I'll never lack anything. Ethan smiled back, moved by her happiness. I'm glad to hear that, sweetheart. After dinner, how about we pick out some new books and toys for your room? Sophia nodded eagerly, and they spent the rest of the evening talking about her interests. Ethan felt deeply grateful to provide Sophia with everything she had been deprived of. That night, Sophia went to bed surrounded by her new treasures. She fell asleep with a smile, feeling safer and happier than ever before. Meanwhile, Ethan went to his study, ready to continue his search for the mysterious nurse. Despite his promise to give Sophia a break from worries, he was determined to uncover the truth. He reviewed the reports his lawyers had gathered. The nurse had disappeared shortly after the accident. Ethan wondered if she had been part of a larger scheme. He contacted his lawyers to investigate further. Weeks passed, and Sophia thrived under Ethan's care. At night, he worked tirelessly to solve the mystery. His lawyers eventually discovered the nurse's connection to a shady insurance company. Could they be involved in Sophia's disappearance? After weeks of investigation, the authorities uncovered a child trafficking network and arrested those responsible. The nurse was among them. Ethan felt a weight lift from his shoulders. Finally, after so many years, he had answers. He shared the news with Sophia, who was shocked. So, that nurse kidnapped me? She asked, wide-eyed. Ethan nodded solemnly. She took you from the hospital and handed you over to the trafficking ring. Sophia shuddered. But why would she do that? She asked. Ethan explained, the insurance company paid her to get rid of you to avoid a payout. Sophia was horrified. So, all this time, they kept me captive? She asked, her voice trembling. Ethan nodded. Yes, but it's over now. You're safe. Sophia, overwhelmed, asked, what happens now? How do I get back the time they stole? Ethan held her close. We'll face this together. I'll always be here for you. Sophia clung to him. Ethan promised, no one will ever hurt you again. I will protect you with my life. Sophia looked at him, unsure but hopeful. Do you promise, Dad? She asked. Ethan nodded. You are my life, and I will do everything to keep you safe. They held each other, savoring the love and safety between them. After a while, Ethan suggested visiting the orphanage. Sophia's eyes lit up. I'd love to, Dad, she said. They were greeted warmly at the orphanage. The children rushed to Sophia, hugging her and welcoming her back. The director, Mrs. Sophia, greeted Ethan. What a joy to see you both again, she exclaimed. And Sophia, look how you've grown. I'm so glad you found a home. Sophia smiled. Thank you, Mrs. Sophia. I'm so happy here with my dad. Mrs. Sophia smiled warmly. I'm so happy for you both. I know you've been through a lot, but now that you're together, you'll overcome anything. Ethan squeezed Sophia's hand. We'll face everything together, he said with determination. You both deserve happiness, Mrs. Sophia replied. After their visit, Ethan and Sophia returned to the mansion, feeling closer than ever. During dinner, Sophia shared stories of the fun she'd had with her friends, thanking Ethan again for rescuing her. Ethan listened, grateful to give his daughter the life she had been denied. If this film touches your heart, leave your mark with a like, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel to explore more meaningful stories with us. Share your feelings with us and tell us your own stories. Every word you share is a building block that helps create our strong and enduring community. Together, we'll create a warm space where everyone can share and connect. Finally, don't miss the incredible stories coming your way soon. We're always here to bring you the best selections, full of deep values yet entertaining. See you there.